17 years old, standing on a jetty in the Florida Keys, watching the sunset into the nearly transparent water. My family made frequent trips to the Keys from our home in Central Florida to dive and collect tropical fish for the aquariums that I kept at the house. And I loved the ocean. From the time I was a child, I used to watch every Jacques Cousteau special that was ever on TV. And from about 6th or 7th grade, I knew that when I grew up, I wanted to be a marine biologist. Only the time of being grown up was fast approaching. And on our frequent trips to the Keys, my family and I met several people with degrees in marine biology. Only these highly educated young men weren't sailing away with Jacques Cousteau and the Calypso. They were working in dive shops and aquarium stores at barely more than minimum wage. And it gave my parents pause. They kept encouraging me to find a different kind of major for college and a different career path that would be a little bit more financially secure. To which I would usually say, but Mom and Dad, you always told me I could be anything I wanted to be when I grew up. And they would say, well, yeah, that's right, so what you want to be is a lawyer. They make good money. So that evening I was standing on that jetty. I was a pretty serious kid, probably more serious than was good for me at times. And I was wrestling with a serious question. What should I do? Who am I? What am I supposed to be? I didn't have any particular spiritual beliefs in those days. In fact, I would have described myself as being a scientifically minded skeptic. But what happened next, I can only describe now as being a spiritually awakening experience. Because as I stood there on that jetty watching the sunset, and I exhausted my mind with this question, I finally allowed it to sink into my heart. And I asked again, what should I do? And I got an answer. And it didn't come as words. It was more of a feeling. And the feeling said, it doesn't matter what you do. I will always be here. And what I got was a message from the ocean as I interpreted it at the time. Not that the ocean would always be out there somewhere, but somehow the power, the mystery, and the majesty that I love so much about the ocean would always be here. I turned my back on the ocean that evening, and I walked away from that jetty with the answer that I needed. A few months later, I graduated high school. I went off to Florida State University, go Noles. 4 years after that, I graduated with a degree in finance and real estate. And I began a career in the commercial mortgage banking business. Got married, had 2 kids, and in quicker time than that kid on the jetty ever would have thought possible, 25 years went by. I had a good life. Was financially successful. And one day I was sitting in my office when my boss came in with some good news. He wanted to let me know that he was ready to make me his partner. Now it wasn't new. This wasn't new news because we've been talking about it off and on for a year. But that day he wanted to tell me that he hired an attorney to draft an agreement. My word said, that's great, good to hear it. But my heart said nothing. In that moment, it was like I'd been dating my job for years and now was being asked to get married. And I wasn't sure it was a place I was going to spend the rest of my life. Well, unlike the kid on the jetty, the adult had a spiritual practice, and so I began asking for guidance. What should I do? This time, guidance showed up in the form of an email from a business acquaintance who mentioned something about a vision quest. And I knew I had to go. I had to do this thing. I had to find out was supposed to do. Well, I don't have time this morning to tell you about what happened on that mission quest. I don't have time to tell you about the book that I've written about the experience, or the workshops and retreats that I now lead to help other people through these life questions. But I do have time to leave you with 4 lines of poetry from Mary Oliver. It goes like this. One day, you knew what you had to do, though the voices around you kept shouting